The only VPN to prove multiple times in court that they have no record of your internet activity is private internet access. Each time the judge said, show us the person's internet activity, and private internet access said, sorry, we don't have it. Their systems are also regularly audited by Deloitte to verify the no-log policy. And it's the only VPN with open source code, so the whole world can see that nothing is being logged. Private internet access is giving my audience 83% off, which is just $203 a month plus 4 extra months for free. Go to piavpn.com/DavidP. The link is down below. Well, welcome to the show, everybody. It was a very long night and I completely lost my voice. And now just kidding. I wouldn't do the show. I wouldn't do the show if my voice were that bad. I am tired. My voice is strained. It was a long and sadly not a positive night, but I am here. Let me just say right up front, I know what so many of you are feeling. I'm getting the messages from some of you that you're tuning out. We are seeing the cancellations. We are seeing the people unsubscribing. Here is my plea to you. Give me the next hour before you finalize that decision. Let's see if we can get a shared understanding of what needs to happen. Let's see if we agree as to what the next steps are. Give me the hour. There's plenty of time to tune away and never pay attention to politics again. We have time for that. You can decide that in an hour. Or 45 minutes if you listen at 1.25 speed. And then let's make that decision. So let's start with the obvious, no way to sugarcoat it, very bad news. Failed former President Donald Trump is poised to become a failed president once again. Donald Trump has defeated Kamala Harris. It has shocked the world that there are tens of millions of Americans in this country willing to do it again. But it is, and we have to accept what is. As of this moment that I am recording today's program, Donald Trump has secured not only the Electoral College, but has also seemingly won the popular vote for the first time ever for him. Of course, he lost the popular vote in 2016, lost the popular vote in 2020. Just about everything that could have gone wrong for Kamala Harris did go wrong. Pennsylvania, gone to Trump. Georgia, gone to Trump. A margin of victory in Florida for Trump that is more than 4 times bigger than his margin of victory in Florida in 2020. The idea that maybe North Carolina could save Harris, gone to Trump. Wisconsin called for Trump. Biden won it in 2020. Michigan and Arizona, both states won by Biden in 2020. Not yet called, but as of this moment, Trump leading by 1.4 in Michigan, Trump leading by 4.2 in Arizona, and then Nevada, a state won by Biden in 2020, falls to Trump, called for Donald Trump. When did I first say to myself, something might be going wrong here? Well, everybody who was on my live stream yesterday knows when that moment was. When we got at 7 p.m. Eastern, the first numbers from Indiana and Kentucky, states that, of course, Trump was going to win. And I saw that Trump's margin in Indiana was way bigger than it was in 2020. And Trump's margin in Kentucky was way bigger than it was in 2020. That was the first moment that maybe things aren't going to go well. Here is the moment that Fox News called it. There's a reason why I'm picking Fox News. If we are going to dig out of this, and we have to because people's lives depend on it, if we are going to say, what's the next step and put one foot in front of the other when we're ready, okay, I'm going to get to that. When we're ready. We need to all experience together the dreadful feeling that is associated with what I am about to play for you. Here is the call from Fox News.
The Fox News decision desk can now officially project that Donald Trump will become the 47th president of the United States.
The former president's comeback will be complete with a win in Wisconsin, a state that he narrowly lost 4 years ago. He is now the second president in U.S. history to win non-consecutive terms. The first was Grover Cleveland in the late 1800s.
My boy Grover.
Senator J.D. Vance will become the 50th vice president of the United States. Voters express deep frustration with the Biden administration, and former President Trump and the future President Trump overperformed in urban areas, particularly with men, proving that the strategy that they doubled and tripled down on over the course of the last few months absolutely succeeded and brought him back to the White House.
We need to be extremely honest with each other and with ourselves. A little bit later in the program, I'm going to start going through some of the explanations that people associated with the Harris campaign and Democrats at large are giving for what took place here. Explanations that are wrong. We really need to be honest about what happened. A lot of the United States of America likes what Trump is selling. It's not that they were confused. Some of them were. I will get to that. But they like what Trump is selling. They love transphobia. Despite it being statistically a non-issue, men and women's sports, as Trump describes it, is resonating with much of America. The idea of a mass deportation of disproportionately brown people that they've been convinced have or will wrong them at some point in the future. Trump ran on it, and a lot of America liked it, because this is not just an electoral college win. It is, as of this moment, a popular vote win as well. There is a preference overall right now among Americans. There is a preference for a convicted felon, billionaire, wannabe fascist over a black woman with a completely uncontroversial sort of center-left economic message and policy. Trump won the popular vote. He might pardon himself federally and get away with it. And we have to acknowledge that this is where we are, because you can't fix the problem unless you have identified it. Donald Trump ran one of the worst campaigns you can imagine. He was barely conscious at some of his events. We covered his events on Monday night. Well, we've got to do it because they're taking over. They're taking over. They're coming from prisons. They're coming. It made no sense. None of it made any sense. And he won the electoral vote, and he won the popular vote, and they're getting the Senate. We'll talk about that. And the House is still up in the air. He had a Nazi-style hate rally at Madison Square Garden a week and a half ago. So it's all bad in that sense. Arguably the worst president in history. When he was voted out, he tried to stage a coup. He took national secrets and stored some of them in his bathroom. And we now are going to face what some other countries have faced before. And if there's any reason for optimism, it's that other countries in their history have faced this. We haven't, but other countries have. A government that falls into the hands of an unrestricted, unfettered, authoritarian madman with his right-wing henchmen and henchwomen who are obsessed with dismantling our institutions, ignoring the rule of law, saying F you to our global alliances, and totally abandoning constitutional norms. Other countries have survived it, and I believe the United States will also survive if we stay engaged. And from some of the early data we are getting internally from our show, it seems that there are people here who are not going to stay engaged. And I will have a message for you very, very soon. There is the possibility here of a Republican government, at least the Senate, if not both House and Senate, Trump as president. And this means that in terms of appointments, when it comes to Trump's ideas on economics and tariffs, Trump's ideas on mass deportation camps, Trump's ideas on get the environmental regulations the hell out of here. He could have something approximating carte blanche to start doing whatever he wants. Cenk Uygur in the middle of the night said there will be anarchy and there will be chaos. And what he means is caused by the incoming Trump administration. That is all absolutely true. But it will be way worse. It will be way worse if we get out of their way and we let them do it. So I'm literally rolling up my sleeves just because it's more comfortable with the particular sweater that I'm wearing. But metaphorically, we have to roll up our sleeves. Let's take a deeper dive into the results, and then we are going to talk about what happens next. As I've said, give me this hour to lay it out, and then you decide. I'm in or I'm out, and we will talk about it. All right, let's now dig in to some more specific results from yesterday. Presidency, Senate, and House, let's go through them one by one. As I've already told you, when it comes to the presidency, not every state has yet been called, but a very powerful victory for Donald Trump. I'm looking for the numbers here. These are no good. Let me get my better numbers. Here we go. As of this moment, Donald Trump leading the popular vote by 4.5 million votes. Trump flipped Pennsylvania for himself. Trump flipped Georgia. Trump flipped Nevada and Wisconsin. And by the time the votes are counted, he may have flipped Arizona and he may have flipped Michigan. This is being called a landslide mandate by some Republicans. Later, we'll see if we believe that that is the case. Over in the Senate, it is indeed the case that Republicans are taking control of the Senate. There are still some races outstanding, but with gains in West Virginia, where Jim Justice, a Republican, has won the seat previously held by Joe Manchin, in Ohio, where Bernie Moreno has defeated incumbent Sherrod Brown, we are seeing gains here. Deb Fischer defeating Dan Osborne in Nebraska. Republicans are taking control of the Senate. Now, they will not have a 60-vote majority. We are still waiting on results from Maine, Pennsylvania, where Dave McCormick may be poised to defeat Bob Casey and steal another seat from Democrats. In Michigan, we are waiting on a final result. In Wisconsin, we are waiting for a final result, but it looks like hopefully Tammy Baldwin will be able to hold that seat. In Arizona, if you say, David, what's the good news from yesterday? I'll do a segment on good news later. One of the best pieces of news from yesterday is that Kari Lake has been made a two-time loser. She is being sent home with another loss. Our friend, former guest on the show, Ruben Gallego, has been elected the next senator representing Arizona. He's a very good guy, and I like to see that. And then in Nevada, it seems as though it has not been called. Jackie Rosen, the incumbent Democrat, may lose. So, worst case scenario here. It does look like Angus King will win in Maine, but it just hasn't been called. If Dave McCormick wins Pennsylvania, and if, let's assume Baldwin holds, and Jackie Rosen loses Nevada, that will mean that Republicans will have 54 Senate seats and Democrats, including the independent caucusing Angus King and Bernie Sanders, will have 46. That will bolster Trump's ability to get things done. We have to be honest. And finally, let's now go to the House. In the House, 218 seats are required to take control of the House. Right now, neither party has it. What is the case is that Republicans currently have 197, whereas Democrats have only 177. Republicans need 21 more seats to take control, whereas Republicans need 41 more seats. We will go through specific races once they are clearer, but the hope right now, if you are a Democrat, the hope is we at least see Democrats hold the House, which will be a check, particularly when it comes to anything that involves spending. It will be a check on Trump's White House and a Republican Senate. That's where we are potentially more complete results tomorrow. All right. This is tough to watch. I'm going to play some clips for you of Donald Trump's confused and terrifying victory speech from the middle of the night. I know that this is tough to watch, but we have to do it because we have to harness the feeling of seeing this into action. And whether we say I'm going to take a pause and resume after the inauguration, that's fine. But this is what we are now up against. Here is Donald Trump. It's vomitous. I'm going to warn you. It is vomitous. Here is Donald Trump being welcomed to his victory party at Mar-a-Lago.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome President-elect Donald J. Trump, First Lady Melania Trump, and the Trump family, accompanied by Vice President-elect J.D. Vance, Second Lady Usha Vance, along with friends and campaign staff.
And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that.
All right. I'm not going to play the whole song, but I am going to play a few of the things that Donald Trump said. Trump, in his confused and disoriented manner, the guy with cognitive decline won. The guy with cognitive decline won. We'll get to that later. Donald Trump saying he's going to do stuff. He's a little confused in how he's saying it, but he's saying he's going to do stuff.
And we love the family, and we're going to have a great 4 years, and we're going to turn our country around, make it something very special. It lost that little thing called special. We have to make it so. We're going to make this so great.
We lost that little thing called special.
It's the greatest country and potentially the greatest country in the world by far. And right now we're going to just work very hard to get all of that back.
There you go. Not exactly clear what he's going to do, but there are things he is going to do. And absolutely terrifying. This is exactly what was at stake. We talked about the stakes. Trump saying that he will bring in Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to make America healthy again. This is endlessly horrifying.
We can add a few names like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And he's going to help make America healthy again.
Ay, ay, ay.
And now he's a great guy, and he really means it. He wants to do some things, and we're going to let him go to it. I just said, but, Bobby, leave the oil to me. We have more liquid gold, oil and gas. We have more liquid gold than any country in the world, more than Saudi Arabia. We have more than Russia. Bobby, stay away from the liquid gold. Other than that.
So essentially saying, Bobby, kill the vaccines, kill the CDC, kill the FDA, but let us keep drilling for oil. Trump with a delusional reset for this forthcoming term, where he says just like he used to keep all of his promises, he's going to keep keeping them.
There's no job like this. This is the most important job in the world. Just as I did in my first term, we had a great first term, a great first term. I will govern by a simple motto: promises made, promises kept. We're going to keep our promises.
And of course, as you all remember, Trump's promises all failing. Replacing Obamacare with something better, failed. Building a wall that Mexico will pay for, failed. Ending the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in one term, failed. Paying off the entire national debt in one term, failed. I could go on. It was all failure, and we must expect that there will be more. Donald Trump seemingly recognizing at his victory speech that the J.D. Vance selection was maybe not so good at the beginning, but all's well that ends well, says Donald Trump.
Under Donald Trump's leadership.
Thank you very much. He's turned out to be a good choice. I took a little heat at the beginning, But he was, I knew the brain was a good one, about as good as it gets.
And finally, and horrifyingly, we are heading rapidly towards an administration that will involve not only Robert F. Kennedy Jr., but also Elon Musk, Trump making that clear as well.
Let me tell you, we have a new star. A star is born, Elon. Now he is. Now he's an amazing guy. We were sitting together tonight. You know, he spent 2 weeks in Philadelphia and different parts of Pennsylvania campaigning. You know, he sent the rocket up 2 weeks ago, and I saw that rocket, and I saw it coming down. I saw it. It was, when it left, it was beautiful, shiny white. When it came down, it didn't look so pretty. It was going 10,000 miles an hour, and it was burning like hell. I said, what happened to your paint job? He said, we've never made a paint that could withstand that kind of heat. And
okay, I can't even play the whole thing. We have to contend with a Trump administration that involves RFK Jr., Elon Musk, as well as other dignitaries. And I use that term completely sarcastically. So I hope that you'll give me the hour today to lay it all out. Step one, which we've just done, is what are the results? What happened? What's happening next? The next step is going to be to try to gain some understanding about what happened. The third step will be to start talking about what happens next. I know people are unsubscribing and canceling from all of our shows. I'm hearing from Brian Tyler Cohen, Jesse Dollemore, Farron Cousins. Everybody is getting hit right now. And I worry that it's happening for the wrong reason. So stick with me here. This is a crisis, but one that I believe we can deal with together. Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back. You watch YouTube, you listen to podcasts, you've heard a ton of ads for VPNs, but all VPNs are pretty much the same except for one. Our sponsor, Private Internet Access, is the only VPN that can confirm your internet activity is not being logged. Their software is fully open source, so you can see that traffic isn't being logged. Their systems are also independently audited by the Big Four accounting firm Deloitte to confirm nothing is being logged, and they've demonstrated multiple times in court they have no record of user activity. Everyone should use a VPN when they connect to the internet. Hides your IP address so governments and big tech can't track you, and you can access Netflix and Hulu content not normally available in your home country. Private Internet Access has servers in 91 different countries and all 50 US states. You can protect all of your devices with just a single account, and Private Internet Access is giving my audience 83% off. Comes out to just $203 a month plus 4 extra months for free. Go to piavpn.com/DavidP. The link is in the description. All right, I would normally say something about sign up for membership here. Given what's taking place over the last 12 hours, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to address that a little bit later in the show. There are starting to be lists of explanations circulated as to why Kamala Harris lost the presidential election and all of the things that she did wrong. The blame game has started. And one of the most important things I think has to happen is that if you are going to solve a problem, it must be diagnosed correctly. It must be diagnosed correctly. If you have a cut on a finger and it's diagnosed as a headache rather than a cut, and you take headache medication for the cut on your finger, the cut on your finger isn't going to get any better. You need a Band-Aid, maybe a little antibiotic cream. And so we have to start from a place where we say, what happened here and what didn't happen? One of the claims that is now being floated about is that Tim Walz was the wrong running mate for Kamala Harris, and that if Josh Shapiro had been selected, he would have carried the blue wall states. Harris would have won Pennsylvania, and she would have won Michigan, and she would have won Wisconsin, and so on and so forth. We have absolutely no evidence of that whatsoever. And in fact, there are real reasons to wonder whether choosing a Jewish running mate in Josh Shapiro, combined with Kamala Harris being a woman and half black and half Indian, I don't know that that would have been any better. In fact, maybe it would have been better in some parts, but it would have been worse in others. And to assume that the reason Kamala Harris lost is because she selected Tim Walz, when Tim Walz's favorability was off the charts and J.D. Vance's favorability was in the toilet, does not seem like the right blame game to play. Secondly, is the claim that Kamala Harris didn't explain or stake out her positions clearly enough. Well, maybe there is something to people didn't necessarily know what her positions were on certain issues, but I would argue to a great degree that's because it wasn't really a referendum on that. This was a referendum on, to some degree, identity. Do I want the wannabe dictator, convicted felon white dude, or do I want the black woman? And unfortunately, in this country, a lot of people didn't want the black woman who, as usual, had to fend off allegations of Marxism and communism and socialism. Should she, as a general principle, have focused more on policy? I, as an individual, say yes. I don't know that at the national level, that is what would have made a difference. Third, the focus on Trump's a fascist failed Kamala Harris. People want to look forward. Harris talking about a fascist Trump was looking backwards. I don't know that I buy that talking about fascist Trump is looking backwards, because Trump is saying he wants to be the future. And talking about whether you want the future to be a fascist future or not seems completely relevant. The problem is that there is far more of an association with communist, socialist, Marxist, which were the labels thrown at Kamala Harris. That's way more effective than saying, oh, Trump's a fascist or he wants to be a fascist, etc. So I struggle to believe that that's the explanation. There is the claim that too many cooks in the kitchen in Harris's campaign muddled the campaign messaging, where it was joy, but it's also Trump's a fascist, but it's here's my economic policy, and it's we're going forward, not back. I don't think that that is unique to this campaign, but it is true that Trump essentially ran on everything's terrible and I'm going to fix it, even if that's not true. I'm going to deport a ton of people, and a lot of this country like that. Men and women's sports are a real problem, and there are contingents in critical states that resonated with, even if it's not showing up anywhere as a major issue overall. And that certainly may be a factor. And finally, another element of blame that's being put forward is that Kamala Harris's team focused too much on setting up for a legal battle, assuming it would be way closer than it was. Trump ended up blowing her out in Florida, the Pennsylvania, Arizona. We look at all these, not Arizona yet, Nevada. A lot of these were nowhere near as close as they were in the past. And therefore, all of the effort going into preparing for the legal battle was for nothing. It should have gone into campaigning. That may be true, although that is one of those hindsight is sort of 2020 situations. I don't think a single one of the blames that I just outlined for you really explains what made sense here, what took place, makes sense of what took place here. To me, what happened is actually far simpler, and it's going to come off as far more offensive than these explanations, but I think it is far more accurate. Number one, millions of Americans quite literally have no idea what's going on. And I know that it's sort of like, oh, David, are you doing the Republicans are stupid thing again? Listen, there's plenty of uninformed Democrats. There's uninformed independents. But there is a degree to which millions of these Trump voters have literally no idea what's going on. At a recent rally, a bunch of young white men, Trump voters, were asked, why are you voting for Trump? And they said, because gas prices are so high. The truth is that gas prices are at their lowest post-pandemic point, tied with a bunch of post-pandemic lows. That is just the truth. So saying I'm voting for Trump because of high gas prices when gas prices are low, you are simply clueless, and Trump benefits from the clueless vote. Same thing with inflation. Oh, inflation's so high. Inflation has come down dramatically under Joe Biden. And in fact, it's come down faster than in other Western developed nations. So that's one thing that a lot of people are just completely clueless about what's going on. Number two, Trump made a play on men with a particular perspective on masculinity. Now, as many of you know, we did a piece on it. Many of you also know I've been recommending that you check out some of Scott Galloway's recent monologues and discussions of masculinity, of a more logical approach to masculinity. Trump made the play for men. He won men, and he is deliberately and overtly trying to appeal to a certain type of man, going on the Rogan show, going on the Milk Boys, the Nelk Boys, whatever they call themselves, bringing in RFK, who I believe is known that he's a steroid guy. I thought it was known anyway, sort of bolstering this idea of the roid raging type aggressive man and saying, welcome and come on in, and you can be more like that if you vote for me. That worked. And as great as Tim Walz is, he can fix cars and trucks, and he hunts, and he knows football. It was not enough to counteract what was an appealing message to white men from Donald Trump. And then third, and here's, it hurts to say it, millions of people liked what Trump was genuinely offering. Trump was genuinely offering the opportunity of a feeble, cognitively declining, wannabe dictator authoritarian who promised mass deportations. They preferred that over the black woman Democrat. Period. Full stop. They preferred it. This isn't a narrow electoral win. Trump won the popular vote as of right now. So the blame game is useful if you're accurately diagnosing the problem. I don't believe it's accurately being diagnosed based on what I just told you as far as the talking points. I think my 3 talking points more accurately reflect what's happening. Now, I want to hear from you on this, because if we're going to move forward, we need to understand what happened. Not everybody may be ready for that, but when we are, we have to discuss it. All right. Later, I'm going to talk a little bit about the future of the Supreme Court. And if there's any reason not to disengage right now, it's the future of the Supreme Court. But I want to revisit something we touched on at the top of the show. We are going to see a very different second Trump administration than the first Trump administration. At the beginning of the first Trump administration, Trump at least paid lip service to, I'm going to bring in people who, even if we on the left disagree with them and find them to be deplorable characters, they at least are people who understand sort of like how diplomacy and administrations work and are going to function somewhat normally, even if we disagree with their policy positions. I'm talking about, Rex Tillerson. Rex Tillerson was not the worst Secretary of State in the world. He recognized where Trump had no idea what was going on. He at least had a true business background of administration and management, and not the guy I would have chosen, disagreed with the politics, disagreed with him on fossil fuels. But Rex Tillerson was at least like, okay, he's at least sane to some degree. We're about to see the Bobby Kennedy Jr., Elon Musk style cabinet under Donald Trump. I'm going to replay a couple of clips from earlier just to reset this. Here is Trump telling us Bobby Kennedy Jr. will be a part of all this.
We can add a few names like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He came in. And he's going to help make America healthy again.
All right, so I played that earlier, but just a reminder, it's not just Robert F. Kennedy Jr., it's also Elon Musk that Trump is now welcoming with open arms.
Let me tell you, we have a new star. A star is born, Elon. Now he is. Now he's an amazing guy. We were sitting together tonight. He spent 2 weeks in Philadelphia and different parts of Pennsylvania campaigning. He sent the rocket up 2 weeks ago.
Okay, yeah, he sent the rocket. So we have to now contend with what does happen to the FDA if Robert F. Kennedy Jr. oversees it? What happens to the CDC if Robert F. Kennedy Jr. oversees it? Does RFK want to ban vaccines? He says no. Elon Musk wants to come in and do efficiency. He wants to deal with government efficiency. What does that look like? And what does that mean? There are rumors of the Trump-friendly judge from his own trial, Eileen Cannon, as maybe attorney general. There was an insane rumor of Trump's kooky lawyer, Alina Habba, as possible attorney general. He is going to try to do all of it, and this doesn't even yet touch the Supreme Court, which we are going to be talking about later. So one thing we have to push and hope for is that the House of Representatives is not lost. That's a critical thing. We have to regroup, but an unfettered Trump, he's not going to mess around with Rex Tillerson. The people he picks are going to be out of their gourds. And this is another aspect of what we have to be ready for. All right, let's look at some of the good news from election night. It wasn't all bad. It wasn't all bad. You have to look sort of deeply, but there are things here that we can look at and say, hey, that's pretty good. First and foremost, our friend Ruben Gallego did defeat Kari Lake. This is good not only because Ruben Gallego is super smart and a great person. He's been a guest on the show, was a great congressman, and now he gets to be senator. But the idea that we are now really sending Kari Lake into the dustbin of history where she belongs, as DeSanctimonious would say. Kari Lake lost the governor's race 2 years ago. She's now lost her Senate race. I never want to hear from Kari Lake again. I suspect we will, but it is over for Kari Lake. Also good news. Remember that whack job, Royce White, that I interviewed not long ago, who said, hey, what's wrong with spending campaign funds at a strip club as long as you spend it on the food and not the strippers? That guy has fortunately lost. Now, shockingly, he did manage to secure nearly 39% of the vote in his Minnesota Senate race, but not enough to defeat Amy Klobuchar, who with 58% of the vote has secured re-election. In North Carolina, that disgusting Republican Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, who was caught admitting on online forums to peeping in girls' showers, who was caught online saying that he's a black Nazi, who was caught online saying that he doesn't really think slavery coming back would be so bad. He seems to think that he would be owning slaves, which is interesting because that's not the way it worked historically in the United States. Mark Robinson is a black man, one of the most unhinged right-wing lunatics. He has lost. Josh Stein, the Democrat, has defeated Mark Robinson to become North Carolina governor. That is very good news. Not surprising, but nice to see. Senator Bernie Sanders easily winning re-election in Vermont by roughly a 2-1 margin with 63% of the vote over challenger Gerald Malloy. And a ton of ballot initiatives. And one of the things that we see happening quite a bit is that a lot of states did have constitutional rights to abortion pass. Arizona passed a constitutional right to abortion. Colorado passed a provisional one. Maryland passed one. Missouri passed one. Montana, Nebraska, Nevada, New York, blue and red states alike passed state constitutional protections for reproductive services, abortion, and family planning. And that's a really good thing. I'm not here to tell you this is the best election ever. There are disasters here. But there are also wrinkles of positivity, which we are going to be focusing on and building on. So let's take a break. I am going to tell you what is happening with left-wing media over the last 12 to 14 hours. It's not good, okay? Let's take a quick break and be right back. Don't forget that the best way to support the David Pakman Show is by becoming a member, which gives you access to the daily bonus show, the regular show with no commercials. You also get access to our entire archive of every episode dating back a really long time and plenty of other awesome membership perks. Go to joinpakman.com, joinpakman.com. I want to call attention to the obvious expected reality the day after the presidential election. We on the left accept the results that Donald Trump won. Hey, MAGA, see how it's done? Trump won this election. I can admit that. I have been saying for months, the difference is going to be if Kamala Harris loses, barring actual evidence to the contrary, we are going to come in and we are going to say, I wish it were different. I didn't vote for the guy, but Trump won. I believe that Trump back in office is a huge mistake. The consequences are potentially disastrous, but Kamala Harris lost. It would be wrong to do anything to try to force her into office, even though she lost, the way that Trump and his followers tried to do when Trump lost in 2020. This is a critical difference between left and right. We were joking. We're going to find out on election day. Does Trump win or was it rigged? And of course, Trump and his followers spent years spreading conspiracy theories about rigged elections and fraud and stolen votes and all of that. And here we are. We accept that Trump won because that's how democracy works. It's exactly what he and his supporters refused to do when he lost in 2020. For 4 years, Trump and MAGA have worked to delegitimize elections, insisting they won in 2020. Trump arguing that he should be president anyway when he lost in 2020. And now the American people have had their say. Tens of millions of Americans want the wannabe dictator. That's the reality. And we're not going out and rioting in the streets. We're not storming government buildings. We're not sending angry mobs to harass election officials or coming up with slates of fake electors. We're disappointed, but we can be vocal and disappointed and respect the process. And MAGA didn't do it in 2020. Now, there is another side to this. I'm already getting the threats. I have people writing to me saying, David, you've got to get it. You should leave the country because now you are the target and everybody that does what you do are going to be the target. I can only hope that Donald Trump's win doesn't embolden their side to try to come and do whatever it is that some of my viewers are worried they might try to do. And similarly, just because we accept the results doesn't mean we're okay with everything that comes next. Marco Rubio, you'll see later in the show, is now arguing Trump has a mandate to do whatever the hell he wants because of a landslide victory. He is going to have, listen, he can do executive orders, but just because we accept the results, because that's what we do in a democratic country, doesn't mean we say, have at it, Haas, do whatever the hell you want to do. Democracy means we accept the wins, we accept the losses, the stakes are very high. So they won this one. I think a lot of them have no clue what they voted for. Many of them have ethical and moral compasses that are completely broken or backwards. They may regret it, but they voted. And we have to stand by that. We're not going to the Capitol on January 6th to riot. We're not demanding that they check whether sandwiches were brought in that don't correlate to the number of votes or whether bamboo fibers from China suggest that the ballots were flown in from overseas. We're not doing any of that. On the other hand, Donald Trump has still not accepted the 2016 popular vote results. Still, it's been 8 years. He has still not accepted any of the 2020 results. There are differences here. And as I get into the next topic, which is going to be a difficult one, I think it's critical to remember that there is a difference and we do have the moral high ground here. Now, with that being said, I have to have a difficult conversation with you. I'm going to tell you something that is terrifying me. I always try to come here and put a positive face on everything, but there is something going on that is terrifying me. When I woke up this morning, we had lost 5,000 YouTube subscribers compared to where we were last night. Now, the first thing I thought was, is this a glitch? We've been on YouTube for 15 years or something like that. And subscribers always just go up. They just never go down. They go up. Is something wrong with my channel? Is someone attacking my channel? What's going on? So I started texting. And I texted Brian Tyler Cohen. And I texted Tyler Cohen and Brian Cohen and Brian Tyler, all of them. I texted all of them. I texted Jesse Dollemore. I texted Luke Beasley and Farron Cousins and Sam Cedar. And every single one of our channels since last night is hemorrhaging subscribers. What is it that is going on? Here is a graphic. As you can see, subscribers just go up, 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 and they are down. It is not just YouTube subscribers. We are seeing record cancellations of paid memberships. Record cancellations. These are the people that keep the show running. Now, for a moment, I thought, if it's just YouTube, maybe YouTube is purging people who are inactive subscribers. And once a year, usually YouTube does this and you see a little decline and then numbers go back up. They're not doing it. They're not doing it. And if that were the case, we wouldn't be seeing paid membership cancellations on the website. So now I understand what is going on. It's terrifying, but it is happening. A lot of people are checking out. I heard anecdotally from a couple dozen people who said, you know, David, I just can't do it anymore. I just can't do it. I'm checking out. I'm out. And the reason that this is terrifying, not only because it puts everybody in left-wing media's livelihoods at stake and at risk, it terrifies me because our instinct is the opposite of what the right does, and we will get crushed if this is the way we respond to a defeat. The right wants us not to exist. The right wants to decimate independent progressive media. And so when I lose 5,000 subscribers and Brian loses thousands and Ring of Fire loses thousands and everybody's losing thousands of subscribers, understand that when the right loses, they get organized, they fund, and they create insanely effective organizations like Turning Point USA, investing in the Daily Wire and building out this huge network of right-wing ideas and influencers. So if you're feeling burnt out, I encourage you, take a break until the inauguration. It's months, okay? Mental health break, do it. But when we start canceling the subscriptions, we are in an algorithmic desubscription spiral right now, because when people start unsubscribing on YouTube, YouTube thinks, oh, we probably shouldn't recommend this content because it's generating a lot of unsubscribes. So then the content doesn't get recommended. And then the message doesn't get out. And then next election, they win by even more. So I do understand the instinct, but if we cede ground to them, they crush us everywhere. Now, we're up against a MAGA Supreme Court potentially till 2050. We'll talk about that later. We're up against a completely uninhibited Trump. I actually have an entire chapter in my forthcoming book, The Echo Machine, about exactly this. It's the introduction. In the introduction, I explain how it's disgusting to me that when you engage in politics, you can't just find solutions. First, you've got to convince people climate change is even happening. You can't just find solutions because half the country doesn't even accept the science of vaccines. I outline this in the introduction, but I also make the point in the book that if you actually care about the world for ourselves, children, grandchildren, other people, families, friends, people we care about, when you disengage because they've gotten so extreme, you cede ground to them and you say, do whatever you want. I'm disengaging, do whatever you want. And we really can't do that, okay? So my request to you today is, please resubscribe to the YouTube channel. Don't watch the clips for months if they're not doing anything for you, okay? But all of a sudden in 12, 14 hours, the entire progressive media ecosystem is under a threat I have never seen before. We've never seen anything like this. Consider, this is the moment where we have to support independent progressive media. If it's not my show, that's fine. Okay, there's plenty of shows you can support. Consider getting a membership. Consider it. We have a code. The new coupon code is not again. All one word, not again. It really represents the dread that we are all feeling. Consider getting a membership. If you want to understand what happened, I outline it in the book, The Echo Machine. Please pre-order the book. There is the assumption you can't have a successful independent nonfiction book unless you have like CNN or MSNBC behind you. I want to prove that wrong. This book will also explain what it is that we are dealing with and how you defend against it historically. Here is the last thing I will say on this, and then we'll take a break and get to some other things. There has never been a movement that succeeded when they exited activism after a loss. No movement has succeeded when they take a loss and they go, I'm out. Never happened. And on the other hand, if you look at the advances and victories of the progressive era, the advances and victories of the New Deal era, the advances and victories of the civil rights era, they've all come after setbacks. They've all come after setbacks. So that's my plea. We're very worried. I would love to sugarcoat it, but we have never seen numbers like this, ever. Numbers this bad. Consider it. Do what you feel is right. We'll take a quick break and be right back. If you value what we do at The David Pakman Show, remember to support us on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/David Pakman Show, where you can get access to behind-the-scenes videos, the daily bonus show, the commercial-free daily show. You can support the show for as little as $2 a month. Check it out at patreon.com/David Pakman Show. The word of the day is landslide and also mandate. I heard Jason Miller, Trump advisor, saying Trump won in a landslide. He has a huge mandate. Marco Rubio, the Republican senator, who was much ridiculed by Trump previously, but of course he fell in line and ultimately kissed the ring. Marco Rubio was on CNN this morning, and he was asked, hey, do you think this is a Senate that would even confirm Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to anything? And Marco Rubio says, listen, it was a stunning victory, overwhelming, landslide, mandate, etc. This is critical in terms of understanding how they are going to view any checks and balances on Trump over the next at least 2, if not 4 years.
Administration, if you are part of the Senate, you'll have a say, of course, in confirming Donald Trump's nominees. He's obviously campaigned with Elon Musk extensively, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has recently expressed interest in a cabinet-level post. Do you think the Senate would confirm him to a cabinet-level post?
Well, I think the Senate's going to give great deference to a president that just won a stunning, what I think is an electoral college landslide when all is said and done, and a mandate. And he's being given a mandate to govern. And I think presidents who are given a mandate to govern deserve from the Senate the opportunity to surround themselves with people that are going to help them execute their policies. We have to understand the job of anybody that President-elect Trump puts in place. The job of those people is not to be a check on Donald Trump or to control him. It is to help carry out what the American people have sent them there to do, and sent them there to do in a pretty overwhelming fashion by modern standards. So I do think that that's important. Obviously, you have to be qualified and all these sorts of things. But beyond that, we have to ensure that he has a team around him that helps him execute his public policy, not undermine it or stand in the way of it. It's the same thing Joe Biden and every president we've ever had has wanted to be surrounded by is, people that are going to do a good job, but ultimately.
So listen, Marco Rubio does this. Well, of course, you've got to be qualified. He throws that in there. But there will be great deference given to a president who won with such a landslide and has generated such a mandate. Let me interpret this for you in clearer layperson terms. Is Trump going to be completely out of control and expect to get everything he wants? The answer from Marco Rubio is yes, he will. He will be out of control and making it super clear. Now, what tools will Democrats have? In the Senate, it's still, we don't know yet, but it's looking like 54 is the number of senators that Republicans will ultimately have. With 54 votes in the Senate, There are certain things that will require 60 votes. They'll need to get 6 Democrats on board. And if they're not able to do it, well, then they're not going to be able to get through what they want to get through. And then in other areas, the filibuster is something that maybe would be used. I'm not a big fan of the filibuster, but like I always say, you don't unilaterally disarm. And thus, if there is if the filibuster is still there, and there's a situation where you can use it in order to prevent Trump and Republicans from doing something horrible, then you use it. But we need to, I always am about where would I like to be, but we also have to exist where we are. And where we are is that with this potentially 312 electoral vote victory for Donald Trump, we are potentially in a situation where he is going to be completely disinhibited, that the potentially 54 Republican senators are likewise going to be saying he gets whatever he wants. He's the king of the party. And we need to be ready with every single tool that we have to prevent him from doing the worst of what he might want to do. I want to talk a little bit about the age and cognitive sort of fallout of this election. At the end of the day, the oldest major party presidential nominee with the very obvious cognitive and linguistic decline, Donald Trump, won. Now, I'm not going to rehash the reasons Trump won and the reasons Harris lost, because we did that earlier. And that includes, at the end of the day, tens of millions of Americans just like what Trump was offering. And we talked about all that already. But what I do want to point to is that I guess Biden wasn't really too old after all. Now, I don't mean if Biden had stayed in, he would have won. What I mean is that the attacks on Biden's brain and the attacks on Biden's age were not considered with the same seriousness by those voting for Donald Trump. As I told you last week, a linguistic analysis found that while Joe Biden's communication has declined over the last 8 years, Trump's has declined significantly more, and Harris, who's 20 years younger than Trump and Biden, has had no decline in her speech patterns. And yet we were told Biden's simply too old and his brain's not working. Trump, who is clearly experiencing more of that exact same, won by a larger margin, including the popular vote, something he failed to do in 2016 and 2020. So it was never really about that. And I think we have to come to grips with the fact that in the same vein as I told you, a lot of people just want the old white wannabe dictator man over the black woman. That's the case for some people. Similarly, they don't really want the energetic candidate. They don't really want the younger candidate. They don't really want the candidate whose brain is functioning and remembers who she's running against and who was running in 2020 and who was running in 2016 and who's the president right now. They don't really care about a candidate that actually knows those things because they voted for the guy who regularly forgets all of that stuff. So it's just another reminder that Biden did something that's difficult to do. People came to him. They said, we don't believe that you can win. He got out. And supposedly it was still going to be evaluated on the merits. Are you too old to run? Trump. Is Trump's brain working well enough to be president? The answer seems to be no, but they don't actually care about that. And this is why they sometimes continue to win, because they will use these weapons asymmetrically and not apply them to their own candidate. We knew that. This is simply proof. All right, I want to close today with a message about the Supreme Court. If they're, on a personal level, it's humiliating that Elon Musk might be part of Donald Trump's administration. It's humiliating. On an individual and optics level, the idea that Bobby Kennedy Jr. will head up FDA and CDC is pathetic and globally embarrassing for the United States. There is no doubt about it. However, the real concern is the Supreme Court in terms of the long term. With Donald Trump's victory, it is likely that Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito, two right-wing justices, realize they can retire and Trump will replace them with right-wingers. This will make it so that Trump will have chosen 56% of the court If Trump gets these 2 more picks, that will be 5/9 of the court selected by Trump. Trump knows that he should pick younger justices. Amy Coney Barrett is only 52 now. Neil Gorsuch is 57. Brett Kavanaugh's 59. If Trump picks Supreme Court justices in their late 40s, early 50s, you are going to have 5 Trump picks on the court, none older than, I guess, Kavanaugh would be 63 at the end of Trump's presidency. This means that Trump is going to control the Supreme Court decades. Trump will be dead, and he will still be in control of the Supreme Court. In the following term, based on the 2028 election, none of the Republicans, none of the right-wing justices are likely to retire. In the term after that, 33 to 37, at the end of that, Kavanaugh would still only be 72 years old. Thomas is currently 82. The oldest of the current Trump picks could be around through the 2028 election, 2032, 2036, 2040. He will be 75. In 2044, he'd be 79, still younger than Clarence Thomas is right now. Trump will have long been in heaven or hell, and the court will be MAGA. So my last plea to people thinking about tuning out, to people thinking about saying, I'm out, I'm going to go do puzzles for the next 40 years or something. MAGA Supreme Court 2050 is what we need to be thinking about. Now, this is so urgent that I would almost say, oh, Biden has to pack the court before he leaves. The problem is then Trump will just pack it again. And so I don't know what the solution is, but I know what the solution isn't, and it's saying bye-bye to politics for the next 4 years. We will be joined by producer Pat on the bonus show today.
Oh, the bonus show where you want to make money, but everybody else that makes money to fund themselves is bad.
We will talk about all of this. We will talk about the instinct to disengage and so much more. Don't miss it. Sign up at joinpacman.com. Use the new coupon code, not again. Not again. I will see you then, and then back here tomorrow. Thanks a lot for watching today's show. I just want to take a second to tell you about today's sponsors. The only VPN to prove multiple times in court that they have no record of your internet activity is private internet access. Each time the judge said, show us the person's internet activity, and private internet access said, sorry, we don't have it. Their systems are also regularly audited by Deloitte to verify the no-log policy. And it's the only VPN with open source code, so the whole world can see that nothing is being logged. Private internet access is giving my audience 83% off, which is just $203 a month, plus 4 extra months for free. Go to piavpn.com/DavidP. The link is down below.